At a speech to launch his leadership campaign, the Labour leader warned members of Parliament that it was their duty and responsibility to unite against the Tories.
I've been in Parliament a very long time. I've seen lots of leaders. I've seen them come and I've seen them go. There is a huge amount of talent on the Labour benches. We are part of, but not the entirety of, the Labour Party and the Labour movement. And I hope those that may not agree with me politically, may not even like me personally. I find that hard to believe, but there are some people apparently who don't like me. I hold out the hand of friendship to them all, because come September, when this election is done and dusted, there will still be a Tory government in office. There will still be grotesque levels of inequality in our society. There will still be whole parts of this country that are left behind Britain. It's the job, it's the duty, it's the responsibility of every Labour MP to get behind the party at that point.
The Sky's chief political correspondent John Craig is in Westminster for us now. And John, we heard the Labour leader there holding out the hand of friendship. How likely is it that that will be received warmly?
Nil chance, I should think, no chance at all. Notice he's talking about September, when he, in bullish form today, expects to have been re-elected. But after that talk about the hand of friendship and that plea for unity, came a threat from Mr Corbyn: deselection. The D word, or the R word if you call it reselection, which of course is a threat that the Corbyn loyalists have been hanging over the mutinous Labour MPs who are opposed to him for some time. What he said was, if this Parliament runs to its full term, there'll be new boundaries. And we know that they're going to cut the number of constituencies from 650 to 600. In that case, there'd be a full and open selection process in every constituency. And now that has been taken by MPs who fear they're going to be deselected by the Corbynistas as a threat. One said to me it's a deselection, not reselection, it's intimidation. He's trying to force people to be loyal, intimidate them into being loyal. Owen Smith, the challenger, has said today that this is a threat to sack Labour MPs. But he had this to say about his own campaign against Mr Corbyn.
I'm just looking forward to a debate with Jeremy about the issues, me putting what I see as the arguments Labour needs to be putting. Jeremy will obviously speak for himself. As I've said many times, Jeremy is to be congratulated for having brought lots of people into the Labour Party, reminded the Labour Party of its radical roots. Jeremy and I are both radicals, but I think I've got a practical edge to my socialism. I think I've got ideas about putting those radical ideas into practice, as opposed to simply sloganising. Meetings are great in opposition, but they don't change people's lives.
But all this talk from Mr Corbyn about loyalty, unity, deselection of MPs came actually in questions, answers to questions after his speech. In that speech, he was talking about tackling discrimination in the workplace, surely a sign he's appealing to trade unions to support him in this contest. As for the numbers voting, well, we learned last night 183,000 have applied to join. It's thought the vetting process of multiple applications, people who are members of other parties and so on, has cut that down to about 140,000. But it's still a lot of new voters, and the Corbyn team are pretty confident a lot of them will support him. The view here as MPs disappear for the summer recess at Westminster, the view amongst Labour MPs is that Mr Corbyn is ahead and Mr Smith has got quite a bit of catching up to do. He's got to make himself better known, he's got to raise his profile, he's got to improve his campaign. Mr Corbyn, of course, has got a campaign up and running. It's more or less the same campaign he had last year. He's got John McDonnell chairing it again. He's looking like the front runner right now, and his words today about looking forward to September suggests he expects to win in September.
OK, John, thank you.
The Labour leadership today, he called on the MPs who want him out to unite behind him and the party instead.
But in the same speech, he warned that none of them will be allowed to stand in the next election without winning a fresh selection process. Here's our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan.
Jeremy Corbyn is going for the female vote, launching his re-election campaign with a pledge to force employers to reveal whether women and men are paid the same. And he claims he is in a position to potentially deliver that one day from Downing Street.
This party is going places. This party is strong. This party is capable of winning a general election. And if I'm leader of the party, I will be that Prime Minister.
Maybe. He's promised other policies will follow, but it's not his policies which have landed him in a leadership contest.
Your MPs just don't really think that you're up to the job. If you win, does that matter?
I hold out the hand of friendship to them all, because come September, when this election is done and dusted, there will still be a Tory government in office. There will still be grotesque levels of inequality in our society. There will still be whole parts of this country that are left behind Britain. It's the job, it's the duty, it's the responsibility of every Labour MP to get behind the party at that point.
But he then suggested that every single Labour MP could face re-selection if constituency boundaries are redrawn before the next election. His leadership challenger thinks that's a way to pressure MPs.
Well, I thought he was in favour of a kindler, gentler politics, but it doesn't seem to be very kind and gentle if you're the boss.
That sounds like a threat to you.
Well, it doesn't sound very kind or gentle to threaten to sack your workers, which is basically what Jeremy is proposing to do, because the workers don't agree with him.
Mr Smith also says Jeremy Corbyn's going round claiming parliamentary victories that aren't his.
Two of the big victories that we've won in the last few months, one on tax credits, the other on personal independence payments for disabled people. I won those victories alongside colleagues in the House of Lords. Jeremy Corbyn didn't pay much attention to them at the time. I remember going to meet with Jeremy to discuss the tax credits policy. He didn't really understand the policy and wasn't terribly interested in it.
Ouch. This leadership battle is getting personal and a little nasty. The original challenger, Angela Eagle, is cancelling constituency surgeries, she says, on police advice. Carl Dinnan, ITV News, Westminster.
To tackle the 5 ills of 21st century Britain and claimed Labour was stronger than when he took office. Jeremy Corbyn today as he launched his bid to stay on as party leader. Despite a dearth of support among his own MPs, Mr Corbyn promised to reach out to disillusioned colleagues once the contest was over. There's been a surge in applications for Labour membership this week, but how many of them might back Mr Corbyn? And what happens to the party if he wins? Here's our political correspondent, Michael Crick.
It's been a summer with more launches than a yacht club. Today, Jeremy Corbyn, buoyed by the news that 183,000 people have paid £25 each this week to sign up as registered Labour supporters. And for when this contest's over, he said this to his critics at Westminster.
I hold out the hand of friendship to them all, because come September, when this election is done and dusted, there will still be a Tory government in office. There will still be grotesque levels of inequality in our society. There will still be whole parts of this country that are left behind Britain. It's the job, it's the duty, it's the responsibility of every Labour MP to get behind the party at that point.
In his audience, women who helped yesterday recruit the rush of registered Labour supporters who'll get votes in this contest.
The room was full of people. It was so full, people were sitting on the floor.
Where was this?
This was in the offices where the Unite offices.
The trade union, Unite?
Yes, yeah.
Were people recruiting on the floor? What, using their mobile phones?
Sitting on the floor calling, yes. I mean, such is the determination of people who support Jeremy.
I know a woman who was made homeless because of the recent cuts in council housing, and she lives in a tent, and she paid the £25 yesterday to join.
So where did she find £25 from if she was living in a tent?
Probably had to give up her food budget, or borrow it, or clean some windows or something.
But Owen Smith claimed not to be worried by this huge influx of new voters.
Well, I think it's great news that the Labour Party is now a mass movement. I think we're now the biggest socialist party anywhere in Europe. I think lots of those people, all of those people have joined because they want to make the Labour Party a stronger party. And they've joined for the same reasons I have, because they believe in inequality and tackling it. They believe in trying to make Britain a better place. And I'm sure that I'm looking forward to talking to all of them during the leadership contest.
Two separate sources have suggested to me this afternoon that Jeremy Corbyn may not do as well amongst this group of £25 a head registered supporters as some people supposed overnight. Examination of some of their application forms suggests that this group may support Mr Corbyn overall, but in nothing like the numbers they did last year, when he won 84% of registered supporters. And in a way, that's good news for Owen Smith, whose friends think that he'll do better than Mr Corbyn amongst another big group, long-standing, fully paid up Labour Party members. And another sign tonight of how nasty this fight could get. Former contender Angela Eagle, who complained of threats and intimidation, announced that on police advice, she's no longer holding surgeries for constituents without an appointment.
Well, earlier I spoke to Jeremy Corbyn following his campaign launch. For a great many of your MPs, it's about your performance. They talk about a chaotic performance. They say that you're simply incompetent as a leader.
How unkind of them. I try to run an efficient organisation, obviously. I'm trying to develop policy at the same time, and I'm trying to ensure that our party members and our party supporters are able to be fully involved and their views very well represented.
Is it too much for you?
No, of course not. I'm doing the job.
I mean, I spend quite a lot of time talking to people in what would be regarded as Labour heartlands. And they have said to me in recent months, your particular brand of socialism does not speak to them. So one pointed out on the day Angela Eagle launched her leadership challenge, you know, Labour in crisis, you were at the Cuba Solidarity campaign meeting. They say that doesn't speak to them, but the message that has spoken to them loud and clear, for example, comes from UKIP or from a Leave campaign run by 2 Conservative MPs that says to them, we will limit immigration, for example.
And none of that, what UKIP say, is actually going to build any house, build any school, give any young person a job. What will do that is a fairer economic system. What will do that is investment. What will do that, all they're doing is playing on the politics of prejudice and fear.
It is working, many people would argue, because Labour are not offering a compatible message. So, for example, if we move ahead to Brexit, as it looks as though we will, you know, what would your policy on immigration be?
The policy on Brexit will be that we want access to the European market. The policy on Brexit will be to end the undercutting of wages by signing the Posting of Workers Directive in the meantime while we're still in the European Union, which would ensure you didn't have this appalling importing of people deliberately to undercut existing wage rates and existing conditions. And so I think we have to end the undercutting, end the exploitation, and stop the blame culture.
People want less immigration. They have just voted for that in huge numbers. Many of them Labour Party supporters. They want less immigration.
I would urge people to think carefully about the numbers of people that work in our education system and our health service.
But you're not
actually,
listening
wait
to
a minute,
them.
I am listening, if you'd let me finish. 50,000 European nationals work in our NHS and keep it going. 2 million British people live and work in other parts of Europe. If we close the door, what's going to happen to those 2 million people? What's going to happen to the services that we have in this country? Isn't it better that instead of the discussion that you're advancing and UKIP are advancing, that we actually invest in housing?
When allegations about bullying in the Conservative Party emerged, rightly, you said it was appalling and said there should be an inquiry. At what point would you launch an inquiry into allegations of bullying and intimidation and misogyny in your own party?
I launched the Shami Chakrabarti inquiry into allegations of anti-Semitism and racism within the party.
And there are many questions about that today with talk that she made
can I
at the
finish,
Labour
please?
period.
Can I finish the answer? She produced a very substantial, very effective report which pointed out, yes, there were some cases of it. Bullying in any form, cyberbullying, online bullying, Twitter, Facebook, physical abuse is obviously totally and absolutely wrong, and I've made that abundantly clear, and I've set out a code of conduct of how this leadership election should be conducted.
Very briefly, I mean, at that very meeting, you had a Labour woman MP walk out in tears because she felt intimidated. You've had another Labour woman crying, talking about intimidation at the NEC. Is there not a case for an inquiry?
There was no intimidation at the NEC. I was at that NEC meeting, and we made it very clear, I made it very clear there that no heavy language should be used and no abuse should be undertaken, and it isn't and it won't be.
If you win again, how do you see the party going forward? If you've got 80% of your MPs who don't back you, do you expect them to come on board?
I will reach out to all those MPs and say to them, look, we represent a very large party. We represent the hopes and aspirations of a lot of people in how we can do things differently in this country.
And if you reach out and they don't reach back, what happens to the party?
I'm sure some of them will reach back and maybe others will take a little longer to come on board. But yes,
is
of
a
course,
split a price worth paying?
No, there's not going to be any split in the party. We're going forward as a party. Listen, we've got our biggest membership ever. Isn't that something to be pleased about?
Jeremy Corbyn, thank you very much.